What would you do if you made a promise to someone you loved and then lost them forever? This is the emotional story of Lucas Bennett, a young boy from a small town who made a simple promise to his father on a rainy night. His father dreamed of seeing him graduate from a great university. Lucas promised he would make that dream come true. But life had other plans. A serious illness changed everything. His family struggled financially. Then Lucas faced the greatest heartbreak of his life. Most people would have given up, but Lucas chose a different path. He worked after school, studied late into the night, overcame grief, failure, and self-doubt, and step by step, he fought to keep the promise he made. This powerful story will remind you that true strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every time life knocks you down. A promise made from the heart can change a life forever. Comment below, what's the most important promise you've ever made? Like this video if you believe family is life's greatest motivation. Subscribe for more inspiring English stories, listening practice, life lessons, and motivational journeys that will improve both your English and your mindset. Now let's begin the unforgettable story of the son who kept his promise to his father. Chapter 1. A Promise on a Rainy Night. In the quiet town of Asheville, North Carolina, 17-year-old Lucas Bennett lived with his parents in a small but welcoming house surrounded by rolling hills and tall oak trees. Life was not always easy for the Bennett family, but they were close, and that made all the difference. Lucas's father, James Bennett, worked long hours as a mechanic at a local repair shop. Every day, he left before sunrise and often returned home after dark. Despite the long hours and tired hands, James always found time for his family. He believed that hard work, honesty, and education were the keys to a better future. One rainy evening, Lucas and his father sat together on the front porch, listening to the sound of raindrops tapping against the roof. The town was quiet, and the cool air carried the scent of wet earth. After a long silence, James spoke. "Lucas, I've always had one dream," he said softly. "I want to see you graduate from a great university and build a life full of opportunities." Lucas looked at his father and saw both hope and pride in his eyes. Without hesitation, he replied, "I promise, Dad. I'll work hard, and one day I'll make you proud." Neither of them knew it then, but that simple promise would shape the course of Lucas's entire life. Chapter 2. Life Changes, Unexpectedly. The months following that rainy evening passed quickly. Lucas continued attending Asheville High School, focusing on his studies and spending time with his family. Life seemed normal, and the promise he had made to his father remained quietly in the back of his mind. Then everything changed. One afternoon, James returned home earlier than usual. That alone was enough to surprise Lucas. His father rarely missed work and almost never came home before sunset. As James walked through the front door, he looked exhausted. His face was pale and his movements were slower than normal. Concerned, Lucas asked if he was feeling all right. James smiled weakly and said it was probably just fatigue. But over the next few weeks, his condition worsened. Simple tasks became difficult. He often felt dizzy and weak. Finally, after several medical examinations, the family received devastating news. James had been diagnosed with a serious illness. The diagnosis shook the Bennett family. Doctors explained that treatment would take time and would prevent James from continuing his demanding job at the repair shop. Suddenly, the family's financial situation became uncertain. Medical bills began arriving. Savings started disappearing. The stress affected everyone in the household. Lucas watched as his parents tried to remain strong, but he could see the worry in their eyes. For the first time in his life, he truly understood how fragile life could be. One evening, he sat alone in his room, staring at the university brochures pinned above his desk. The dream that once seemed achievable now felt distant. How could he focus on college when his family was struggling just to pay the bills? For a moment, doubt entered his mind. Maybe his dream would have to wait. Maybe circumstances were simply too difficult. Then he remembered the promise he had made on that rainy night. "I promise, Dad. I'll work hard and one day I'll make you proud." The words echoed in his thoughts. At that moment, Lucas made a decision. No matter how difficult things became, he would not abandon that promise. He didn't know how he would overcome the challenges ahead. He didn't know how he would balance school, family responsibilities, and the growing financial pressure. But he knew one thing for certain: giving up was not an option. And very soon, Lucas would be forced to take on responsibilities far greater than any teenager should have to carry. Chapter 3: Taking Responsibility. As James's health continued to decline, life for the Bennett family became increasingly difficult. The medical treatments were expensive, and without James's regular income, the family's savings began to disappear much faster than anyone had expected. Lucas could see the stress on his mother's face every day. She tried her best to stay positive, but the growing stack of bills on the kitchen table told a different story. One evening, after dinner, Lucas sat quietly in his room thinking about his family's situation. He knew he couldn't solve every problem, but he also knew he couldn't stand by and do nothing. The next day, after school, he walked into a local grocery store and asked if they were hiring. A week later, he got a part-time job stocking shelves and helping customers. The pay wasn't much, but it was a start. Every afternoon, Lucas attended school, completed his homework, and then worked several hours at the store. By the time he arrived home, he was often exhausted. Some nights, he studied until midnight before finally going to bed. The routine was demanding. There were days when he wanted to quit, days when the pressure felt overwhelming. While his friends spent weekends relaxing, watching movies, or attending parties, Lucas was usually working or studying. Sometimes he felt jealous. Sometimes he wondered why life had become so difficult. But whenever those thoughts appeared, he remembered his father. He remembered the sacrifices James had made for the family, and he remembered the promise. One evening, Lucas returned home after a long shift. As he entered the living room, he found his father sitting quietly in a chair. James looked weaker than before, but he smiled when he saw his son. "I heard you've been working hard," he said. Lucas nodded. "I'm just trying to help." James looked at him proudly. "You shouldn't have to carry all this responsibility at your age." Lucas smiled. "Maybe not, but we're family." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then James placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Your strength isn't measured by how much you carry," he said softly. "It's measured by how you keep moving forward when things are difficult." Those words stayed with Lucas. Over the following months, he continued balancing school, work, and family responsibilities. It wasn't easy, but with every challenge he faced, he grew stronger. And although he didn't realize it yet, the struggles he was experiencing were preparing him for even greater challenges ahead. Because soon, the pressure would become so intense that Lucas would begin to question whether he could truly keep the promise he had made to his father. Nabashtap, Chapter 4: The Difficult Road. As the school year progressed, Lucas found himself carrying more responsibility than ever before. Every day followed the same exhausting routine. He woke up early for school, attended classes, worked at the grocery store in the afternoon, helped his mother at home, and studied late into the night. At first, he managed to keep everything under control, but eventually the pressure began to take its toll. He started feeling constantly tired. His concentration in class became weaker. Assignments that once seemed easy now felt difficult. For the first time in years, his grades began to slip. One afternoon, Lucas received a disappointing score on an important math exam. As he looked at the paper, frustration filled his mind. He had worked harder than ever before, yet it seemed like he was falling behind. That evening, while shelving products at the grocery store, he couldn't stop thinking about it. No matter how hard he tried, there never seemed to be enough time. His friends were enjoying their teenage years while he rushed from one responsibility to another. Sometimes he felt as though he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. One Friday night, after finishing a long shift, Lucas sat alone in the employee break room. The room was quiet. For the first time, he allowed himself to ask a question he had been avoiding. What if I can't do this? The thought scared him. What if he couldn't maintain good grades? What if he couldn't earn a scholarship? What if he failed to keep his promise? For a few moments, doubt consumed him. The dream that once felt inspiring now seemed almost impossible. When he finally returned home that night, he found his father awake in the living room. James noticed the exhaustion on Lucas's face immediately. "Rough day?" he asked. Lucas nodded. Then, for the first time, he admitted how overwhelmed he felt. He talked about school, work, the bills, the pressure, and the fear of failing. James listened quietly. When Lucas finished speaking, his father smiled gently. "You know," James said, "most people think success belongs to those who never struggle." Lucas looked up. "But that's not true." James leaned forward. "The people who succeed aren't the ones who never face difficulties. They're the ones who keep moving forward despite them." Lucas listened carefully. His father continued, "Perfection isn't what matters, persistence is." The words settled deep in Lucas's heart. That night, he realized something important. The goal wasn't to be perfect. The goal was simply to keep going. And although the road ahead remained difficult, his father's wisdom gave him the strength to take the next step. A step that would soon become even more important as James prepared to share one final lesson with his son. Chapter 5: A Father's Wisdom. Over the next few weeks, James's health continued to decline. Some days were better than others, but Lucas could see that his father was growing weaker. Even simple tasks left him exhausted. Yet despite his illness, James remained calm and positive. He rarely complained. Instead, he spent more time talking with Lucas, sharing stories and lessons from his own life. One Saturday afternoon, they sat together in the backyard. The autumn leaves drifted gently through the air, and the golden sunlight warmed the cool afternoon. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then James looked at his son and smiled. "Do you know something I've learned after all these years?" he asked. Lucas shook his head. James leaned back in his chair. "Life doesn't reward people because they're lucky. It rewards people because they refuse to quit." Lucas listened carefully. His father continued, "When I was your age, I thought successful people were somehow different from everyone else." "What changed your mind?" Lucas asked. James chuckled softly. "Meeting them." Lucas smiled. James went on, "I realized they weren't smarter than everyone else. Most of them simply kept going when others stopped." Those words felt powerful. James paused before continuing. "You're facing challenges right now, more than most teenagers should have to face." Lucas looked down. Some days he still felt overwhelmed. James noticed. "Listen to me, son." Lucas looked up. "Success isn't about never falling down. It's about standing back up every time you do." For a moment, silence filled the backyard. Then James added something Lucas would never forget. Open quote, "Persistence beats perfection every single time." Close quote. The sentence seemed simple, but it carried years of experience and wisdom. That evening, Lucas wrote the quote in a notebook and placed it beside his bed. Whenever he felt discouraged, he read it again. Slowly, his perspective began to change. Instead of focusing on everything that could go wrong, he focused on taking the next step. One assignment, one work shift, one day at a time. And as his mindset improved, so did his determination. For a while, things felt a little brighter. But deep down, Lucas knew the situation was becoming more serious. The doctors were worried, his mother was worried. And although no one wanted to say it aloud, everyone understood the truth. James was running out of time. Soon, Lucas would face the most painful moment of his life. A moment that would test his strength, his faith, and the promise he had made on that rainy night. Now Chapter 6, The Greatest Loss. As winter arrived in Asheville, the Bennett family faced the reality they had been trying to avoid. James's condition worsened rapidly. The treatments were no longer helping as much as before, and he spent more time resting than talking. The strong, hard-working father Lucas had always known seemed to fade a little more each day. Despite everything, James remained positive. Whenever Lucas entered his room, he greeted him with a smile. But Lucas could see the truth in his father's eyes. Time was running out. One evening, snow began falling softly outside the hospital window. Lucas sat beside his father's bed, holding his hand. The room was quiet except for the gentle sound of medical equipment. James looked at his son and smiled weakly. "You've become stronger than you realize," he said. Lucas tried to smile, but tears filled his eyes. "Dad, don't talk like that." James squeezed his hand gently. "Listen to me, son." Lucas nodded. "I may not be here for every step of your journey." The words broke Lucas's heart. "But I need you to remember something." Lucas leaned closer. James took a slow breath. "Never stop believing in yourself." Tears rolled down Lucas's cheeks. His father continued, "Life will challenge you. People will doubt you. Sometimes you'll doubt yourself." He paused. "But don't ever let those doubts define who you are." Lucas struggled to hold back his emotions. Then James said the words that would stay with him forever. Open quote, "Keep your promise, not for me, but for yourself. Build the future you deserve." Close quote. A few days later, surrounded by his family, James Bennett passed away peacefully. The loss shattered Lucas. For weeks, he felt numb. The house seemed quieter, the world seemed colder. Every room reminded him of his father. The empty chair in the living room, the tools in the garage, the coffee mug still sitting on the kitchen shelf. Everything brought back memories. For the first time in his life, Lucas felt completely lost. The promise that had once motivated him now felt painfully heavy. His father was gone, and the person he wanted most to make proud would never see his success. One night, sitting alone in his room, Lucas stared at the university brochures pinned to his wall. Part of him wanted to give up. Part of him wondered if any of it still mattered. Then his eyes fell on the notebook beside his bed, the notebook where he had written his father's words. Open quote, "Persistence beats perfection every single time." Close quote. Lucas closed his eyes. For a moment, he imagined his father's voice, and slowly, something changed inside him. The pain was still there, the grief was still overwhelming, but beneath it, a new determination began to grow. If he couldn't make his father proud in person, he would honor him through his actions. The promise was no longer just a dream, it had become a mission. And from that day forward, Lucas decided that every step he took would be a step toward fulfilling the promise he had made on that rainy night. Chapter 7. Turning Pain into Purpose. The months after his father's passing were some of the hardest of Lucas's life. Every morning he woke up hoping the pain would be gone, but it wasn't. The empty chair at the dinner table, the silence in the garage, and the absence of his father's voice reminded him daily of what he had lost. At first, grief made it difficult to focus. His grades slipped, work felt exhausting, even simple tasks seemed overwhelming. There were days when Lucas wanted to stay in bed and forget about his responsibilities. But whenever he felt like giving up, he remembered the promise. And he remembered his father's final words. Open quote, "Keep your promise, not for me, but for yourself." Close quote. Slowly, Lucas began changing his mindset. Instead of allowing his pain to stop him, he decided to use it as fuel. Every time he missed his father, he opened his books. Every time he felt discouraged, he worked a little harder. Every challenge became another reason to keep moving forward. His teachers began noticing the change. One of them, Mrs. Thompson, called him aside after class. "I know you've been through a lot," she said gently, "but I've also noticed something remarkable." Lucas looked at her curiously. "You haven't quit." Those words meant more to him than she realized. For the first time in months, he felt seen. Soon, other teachers offered support. They helped him catch up on missed assignments and encouraged him to apply for academic opportunities. Little by little, Lucas regained his confidence. His grades improved, his focus returned, and his determination grew stronger than ever. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, Mrs. Thompson handed him a brochure for a prestigious scholarship program. The scholarship could cover most of his university expenses. Lucas stared at the brochure. The opportunity felt enormous. The competition would be fierce. Hundreds of talented students would apply. For a moment, self-doubt returned. Then he remembered something his father had taught him. You don't have to be the best. You just have to keep going. Lucas smiled. He took the brochure home and placed it on his desk. That evening, he began working on his application. He had no guarantee of success, but for the first time since his father's passing, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. And that hope was about to lead him to the biggest opportunity of his life. Chapter 8. The Scholarship Opportunity. The scholarship application became Lucas's top priority. He knew this opportunity could change everything. Without financial assistance, attending a top university would be extremely difficult for his family. Medical expenses had drained most of their savings, and his mother was working hard just to keep the household running. Every evening after school and work, Lucas sat at his desk and focused on the application. There were forms to complete, academic records to submit, and recommendation letters to request. But the most important part was the personal essay. The scholarship committee wanted applicants to describe a challenge that had shaped their lives. Lucas knew exactly what he wanted to write about. He wrote about his father. He described the rainy night when he made a promise. He wrote about the illness that changed his family's life. He shared the pain of losing his father and the determination that helped him keep moving forward. Most importantly, he explained how that promise had become the driving force behind his education and future goals. Writing the essay wasn't easy. Several times, tears filled his eyes as memories returned, but he kept writing. When he finally finished, he felt proud. For the first time, he had put his entire journey into words. A few weeks later, he was invited to attend an interview with the scholarship committee in Charlotte. The opportunity itself felt like an achievement. On the day of the interview, Lucas wore his best suit and traveled to the city with his mother. As they entered the large office building, his heart raced. The room was filled with talented students from across the state. Many had impressive accomplishments. For a moment, Lucas felt intimidated. Then he remembered his father's advice. Persistence beats perfection every single time. When his turn came, he walked into the interview room with confidence. The panel asked about his academic goals, leadership experiences, and future plans. They also asked about his essay. Lucas spoke honestly. He shared his story, his struggles, his promise, his determination. When the interview ended, one of the panel members smiled. "Thank you for sharing your journey, Lucas," she said. "Your resilience is truly inspiring." As he left the building, Lucas felt a sense of peace. Whether he won the scholarship or not, he knew he had given his best. Now all he could do was wait. Weeks passed. Every day he checked the mailbox. Every day he wondered if the letter would arrive. And then, one sunny afternoon, a large envelope appeared in the mailbox. The return address belonged to the Scholarship Foundation. Lucas stared at it. His hands trembled. The moment he had worked toward for months had finally arrived. And inside that envelope was news that would change the course of his life forever. Chapter 9. The Dream Comes True. Lucas stood in the kitchen holding the envelope. For a moment he couldn't bring himself to open it. His heart pounded. His mother stood beside him, equally nervous. Months of hard work, sacrifice, and hope had led to this moment. Taking a deep breath, Lucas carefully opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the first line, then the second. Suddenly he froze. "Mom," he whispered. "What does it say?" she asked anxiously. Lucas looked up, tears filling his eyes. "I got it." For a second, neither of them moved. Then his mother wrapped him in a hug. "You did it," she said through tears. Lucas had been awarded the scholarship. Not only would it cover most of his university expenses, but it also included mentorship opportunities and leadership programs. It was everything he had hoped for, and more. The news spread quickly. His teachers congratulated him, friends celebrated with him. Even people who barely knew him admired what he had achieved. But the person Lucas wished he could tell most was his father. A few days later, Lucas visited a quiet hill overlooking Asheville, one of James's favorite places. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold. Lucas sat quietly and looked out over the town. Holding the scholarship letter in his hands, he smiled. "Dad," he said softly, "we did it." The wind rustled through the trees. For a moment, he felt as if his father were there with him. Not physically, but in spirit. Every lesson, every sacrifice, every word of encouragement, it had all helped him reach this moment. Soon afterward, another dream became reality. Lucas received an acceptance letter from one of the most respected universities in the country. The promise he had made on that rainy night was finally coming true. Yet as proud as he felt, Lucas understood that this achievement was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter his father had always believed he could write. And years later, standing on a graduation stage, Lucas would finally fulfill the promise completely, while sharing a story that would inspire everyone who heard it. Chapter 10. Keeping the Promise. 4 years passed faster than Lucas could have imagined. University life was challenging, but every obstacle reminded him of how far he had already come. While many students struggled with setbacks, Lucas relied on the lessons his father had taught him. Whenever classes became difficult, he remembered, open quote, Persistence beats perfection every single time. Close quote. Whenever he felt discouraged, he remembered the promise. And whenever he doubted himself, he remembered his father's belief in him. Through hard work and determination, Lucas excelled in his studies. He joined leadership programs, volunteered in his community, and became a mentor to younger students facing their own challenges. His professors admired his dedication. His classmates respected his resilience. But for Lucas, success was never about awards or recognition. It was about honoring the promise he had made years earlier. Finally, graduation day arrived. The university campus buzzed with excitement as students and families gathered to celebrate. Dressed in his graduation gown, Lucas stood backstage waiting for his name to be called. As he looked around, he saw proud parents taking photos with their children. For a moment, he wished his father could be standing there too. But instead of sadness, he felt gratitude. Everything his father had taught him was still with him. When Lucas's name was announced, he walked across the stage and accepted his diploma with honors. The audience applauded. His mother stood in the crowd, tears of pride streaming down her face. Later that day, Lucas was invited to deliver a short speech to fellow graduates. Standing at the podium, he looked out at hundreds of faces. Then he began sharing his story. He spoke about a rainy night in Asheville. He spoke about a hardworking father who believed in education. He spoke about illness, loss, struggle, and perseverance. And he spoke about a promise. By the end of the speech, many people in the audience were wiping away tears. Lucas smiled and concluded with the lesson that had guided his entire journey. Open quote. The people we love may not always walk beside us, but their lessons can guide us for the rest of our lives. Close quote. The audience rose to their feet in applause. As Lucas stepped away from the podium, he looked toward the sky and smiled. The promise had been kept, not because the journey had been easy, not because life had been fair, but because he had refused to give up. The teenage boy who once sat on a porch listening to the rain had become the man his father always believed he could be. And in that moment, Lucas knew something with complete certainty. His father would have been proud. Moral of the story: a promise made from the heart can become a powerful source of strength. Even in times of loss, hardship, and uncertainty, perseverance, faith, and determination can help us achieve the dreams of those who believed in us. Never underestimate the power of keeping your word and honoring the people who inspired you to become your best self.